All right, everybody, welcome back. Once again, here we are with this series on how to get started in PRS shooting. You've had the opportunity to watch episode 1 with Team Black Flag, Nick Depperschmidt and Richard Dias. Now this is going to be a continuation of that episode. This is part 2, and it's going to be all about mental toughness, how you handle the mental aspects of the game, as well as a really informational part on how we practice, how they practice specifically. I'll throw some tidbits in there, and I really think this is an episode you're going to enjoy, so stay tuned. So switching gears a little bit, but not exactly, kind of along the same lines. Let's hear a little bit about y'all's practice strategies. And guys, I'm just going to tell you, this is where they manage to practice a lot more than me. And it's not because they have more time than me. They choose to make more time, and I fully admit that. And I try to go to the range, and every time I'm going to go there with a disciplined plan, and then I go there and I stick to it about halfway. But trigger time's better than no trigger time, right? But I'm actually really excited to hear what they're about to say. So I want to hear a little bit about your...
Well, let's preface it by saying don't be intimidated by what we're about to say. The fact that I don't know how to say that right, because I have a lot of time that I can take and practice, and people may not have a lot of time.
So for the record, before you get intimidated, I'm actually going to make this non-intimidating. One of the favorite things that I love to do, I spend a lot of time on airplanes, and I get to read, and there's actually a book by Marcus Blanchard called essentially like the fundamentals of like odd position shooting or something. I'll post a link up, but he's actually got a whole chapter on there on simple practices. There's one including a very famous shooter that I'm blanking on the name now that has 40 rounds to perfect PRS practice. Jim C, there we go. Yeah. So, and he includes that in there. So I'm going to put that up there. You're going to have a resource, but also I want to hear what's about to happen.
Okay, well that being said, so we have organized practice that we do as many Fridays as we can. Every Friday is what we try to do.
Right.
But I'll let him talk about that because he kind of organizes it. For me personally, between those and between matches, I dry fire a lot.
Right.
I bought a inexpensive pipe gate, built some legs for it, and it's sitting upstairs. Mm-hmm. And I have a rule, if I'm in a practice mode, like getting ready for a match or something, every time I walk by it, I have to stop and practice for at least a minute or two. I don't do long, extended practices,
right?
Because I feel like I start doing things. I start practicing wrong,
like going through the motions.
Right. I'll start developing bad habits. Yeah. So I'll do like 2 or 3 minutes, and I'll work on certain things like trying to control my wobble, and then other times I'll work on good trigger breaks. Mm-hmm. And then other times I want to work on transitioning, with my udder, because it can be a little tricky sometimes.
No, for sure.
Especially on a pipe gate.
Yep.
And then I'll do what you spoke of earlier. Sometimes I'll practice with my tripod because I think it's important if you're going to use one to know how to use it.
Yep.
You've got to practice. If you're going to have the opportunity to use it, you need to know how. Because as simple as it looks, it's not. Then I'll practice without it, with my udder, just a front bag, no rear bag, and that's usually when I'm trying to control my wobble. And then I'll even practice with no bags.
Yeah.
I'll just throw it up there and.
Right.
So that sounds like a lot, but it's really in short segments.
Yeah, and before we go on to the practices, I just want to bring up, because that's a point that I love that you're making. You're hearing the term wobble. So when you're talking about wobble, essentially what you're saying is when I'm on a barricade, my crosshairs, I'm trying to get my crosshairs to settle within the size of a target, whatever that size that target may be.
Right.
And it's a concept that actually in this book, once again, I'm going to put that link up there. In this book, he talks about several strategies that really all come down to being able to decrease your wobble, meaning a higher percentage of your time is spent with the crosshairs on the target. Right. And that you can be more confident in your trigger break. And so that's why I actually personally, before y'all once again, not to intimidate anybody, I really only practice on about 2 barricades, because in my mind, I have certain strategies about how I approach barricades, and I don't have that much access to several barricades. But that doesn't mean that the same principles don't happen, like heel on the ground, not up on my toe with my rear leg, elbow down in a good position where I'm not flexing. Are my knees bent, or is my back straight where my muscles aren't tense the whole time, right? So there's just a lot of strategies that really, it's more about a principle of, at the end of the day, you're going to get more hits if you reduce that wobble. Now, the more barricades you can practice on is just going to open your toolbox.
Sure.
But it's really about, I'm really glad you bring that up, because really that is one of the main points that always sticks in my head is, what can I do to reduce the wobble?
And learn your wobble.
Yeah.
Learn how breathing affects it.
Yeah.
You know, learn how your trigger brake affects it.
Right.
Different positions, you know, your natural point of aim and stuff like that. Learn what your wobble does. You'll be amazed if you just sit there and breathe and watch how it changes.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So more about these practices.
Yeah, so our practices...
And your personal practice.
Yeah. So our practices on our weekly practices was started from Jim C's 40 rounds of perfect PRS practice.
Oh, there you go.
And I took that document, I'd found someone had posted it online, and started to think of, you know, I'm running into situations where I feel like I'm unprepared and I'm rushing on a rooftop, or, you know, or a PRS barricade, or something you're going to run into, like tires. And so I wanted to replicate the match feeling every week for all the guys. So when we get there, we zero, and then check velocity if you need to, because usually everybody's always kind of tweaking something. You really shouldn't. The best idea is to not mess with stuff as much as possible. But then we shoot a 40 round match with 4 stages. And so we're limited to 547 yards. We're at our club. And so what I do is I set out small targets. So PRS barricade is a 10-inch target at 400 yards. So we shoot an 8-inch target at 427 yards. And if the KYL rack is usually at 300 yards, we put it at 400, the spinner, and things like that. And so we did have to invest in some steel. And then let's say that I've run into a stage that I've not done well at, I try to replicate it. So I have 8 days of stages planned, and we run through them when everybody can be there. You know, sometimes one of us can't be there because we're at a match or we're on vacation or whatever. And then I keep track. So like last week, Lou Smith and I were out practicing, and it was actually day 1, and it was the second time we had shot it, and I wanted to see how we improved on it. It was a rooftop, it was a cattle gate, it was a PRS barricade, and it was standing, sitting, kneeling, unsupported front. Oh gosh. And so, and we tried to practice every situation you could find. And I realized I was on the right track is because one day Scott DiCaprio, Andy Hawkins, Fred Barton from Bison Tactical were out there, and they said, if you guys continue to practice like that, you're going to get better. And so it's 40 rounds, and what I've actually learned, lately I've changed it a little bit, is I was in a NRL match in Craig, I was an RL, and I watched, how many shooters were there, 100 plus or whatever, I don't know how many were there. I watched all of them go through my stage each day, and you can tell the difference between Steve Eames and John Pinch, or Gina Milkovich, Jake Vibert. They lay down and you can tell that they've done it probably 100,000 times more than you have.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Compared to 90% of the field, 95% of the field. And that just showed me, so what I've been doing recently, and I had some good conversations with some friends we've made about just, like I found that I was slapping the trigger. Because not only are we practicing on small targets, we're always practicing at a minute 30. So I found I was rushing a lot and slapping the trigger a lot. And so I've taken it and I'm incorporating drills more, untimed drills for fundamentals like follow through and things like that. And I've actually started shooting paper
Yeah, it's a great. That's in this book for the record too.
3-inch dots at 200 yards off a barricade is pretty humbling. And so,
Yikes.
and so I've incorporated that day. So one day we're gonna shoot like off our bellies all day. Next day we're gonna shoot dot drills and we're gonna shoot small targets on paper.
Yeah.
As far as my dry fire routine, I have a strict dry fire routine I adhere to as well. In my backyard I have a rooftop, I have a barrels, I have a barricade, and I live in the city, and I have thankfully good neighbors. And so I can't walk out of my backyard and shoot. And so I have to dry fire, which it's helpful because it gets you used to feeling the time out. So I always shoot at 1:30, and so you start to feel the time a lot better.
Yeah.
So like I know I can't shoot a PRS barricade in under like a minute ever because I'm a slow shooter. But I also know that you can work on troop lines with one of the dry fire adapters.
Yep.
They go on the front of your scope. You can kind of work on troop lines and changing positions by laying a couple boxes out in your backyard. And I dry fire. I have a whole routine that I do every single day. So.
Yeah. Huh. So it's very intricate, but I think, man, that's super valuable. I mean, and the thing is, you don't have to copy their strategies. You won't copy their strategies, but you can take little tidbits of that, little nuggets, and conform to what you do. I think the only thing that I have to offer there is, man, when I started shooting, you got to realize I was raised shooting, and I'd like to think that I was raised with better fundamentals than most, but once again, it was not long range. It was very, let's say, value proposition rifles. Didn't care about ammo. I didn't even know if I was shooting the same ammo in the same mag. I could have 3 different types of ammo in the same mag. Didn't bother me. So I shot a lot though. And man, when I first got in this game, I could burn through some ammo. Man, I'd take 100 rounds to the range. And I'd get home and not realize that I just burned $100, But one thing that I started doing was I purposely will do drills. So I've started incorporating this part of my coordinates practice where we'll mess with each other. It's like we'll dial and then there'll be a target and we'll change each other's turrets and put a block up. So you miss and then you have to trust your shot, and it's all about the second round hit. Do you trust that first trigger pull enough that you can make a full adjustment? And I believe in that, but what we've done to be a little bit more efficient, we'll do that as a drill, but then I'll go up to a PRS wall and I'll do 4 shots in 40 seconds from 4 different positions. Because if you think about it, like if you can take your first shot in 10 seconds, you could probably take 2 shots in 13, 14 seconds, right? But for me, it's about how quickly can I get stable. And so I try to be efficient with my ammo, and I'll take 40 rounds and I'll do 4 positions 10 times, and so that's just another thing. If if you're a little bit price conscious like I am, or maybe the position building is I feel like I can lay down and shoot prone with anybody, but I am not the best positional shooter. And so I try to be efficient in working on that aspect of my game. So
a lot of the dry firing is what you're gonna find is the more you do it, it's gonna alleviate the stress that you're gonna feel when you lay down in a match.
Yeah.
And so some matches you can start laying down with your reticle on the first target. Some matches you're gonna start port arms, Tim Milkovich, and you're going to have all your gear in your hand, right?
Yep.
And so you're gonna lay down and your bipod's not gonna be the right height. Okay. And you're gonna lay down and you're gonna not know you're not gonna be able to find the target, or your bag's not gonna be the right height. So if you can practice that in dry fire, you're gonna learn how to lay down and find a target and maybe break that first shot in 15 seconds.
Right.
10 seconds is fast for me, but you're gonna feel confident. And so all you're gonna be doing is you're gonna be focused on watching trace and watching where your miss is or watching where your hit is, and then you're gonna move on. And then it's just like a calm. For me, I can't shoot with my hair on fire. I gotta shoot in like a calm state.
Absolutely.
And so it's gonna alleviate that stress. Dry fire is, I think, essential to getting better.
All right, so switching. Well, actually, no. This is staying on the same train of thought. But one thing we did have is we actually created a thread when we were talking up the series, asking what questions people had, and one kind of resounding question we got was, how do you deal with the mental aspect of the game? And I'm not talking how do you read wind or how do you do all this math on the fly. I'm talking about the mental adversity, bolt won't close on the first round, or it just totally flusters you, or you have a double feed. How do you keep from jerking it and just taking more time? Or even just, we've got guys who, I can't wait to hear Rich talk about this, but guys that are like, what if the people talking behind me distract me and I just can't deal with that, right? So some people aren't willing to tell everyone to F off. Just the mental, how do you stay in it mentally? Because I mean, I've even spoken on this video already, like I've had a couple of days that I unbelievably to myself just kind of lost it mentally, right? I was just out of it from the start. So love to hear just some insights on how you deal with the game mentally.
Well, I'll go start since you pointed at me. It's not that I don't mind people talking behind me. It's when they're talking louder than the RO.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Especially if you need to ask a question. And it's not always that I forgot something. I just want to confirm before I break that trigger and make a mistake. Because once it's done, it's done. You can't get that point back.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask the RO something, and then sometimes other people want to answer. And the problem is I'm in tune to what the RO is saying because I'm hearing that impact. Hopefully, impact. So I'm listening for their voice, he or she or whoever it is, and then I get a bunch of other voices, and you're like, okay, was that the RO or not? And then now you're burning time trying to figure out who's talking to you or whatever.
Yeah.
But most recently, 2 weeks ago, I actually had a crazy incident happen, and I found out that I only know like 3 or 4 other people that it happened to. So I'll use it as an example of how to deal with a stage. Very first stage, second day, it's raining, so there's a rain cover on my gun. So I'm not looking at it. I'm like 5th or 6th on the stage. I get up, load, make ready, start the stage, bolt stops. I mean, it will not go forward. But it went forward enough that it started to chamber around, so I'm thinking double feed. Drop my mag, clear it, put it back in, bolt locks. And I'm like, okay, maybe I double fed again, drop my mag again, reload, bolt stops. I drop the mag and I try to run it forward by itself and it won't go forward. And then the whole time in the back of my head, I'm thinking, something doesn't look right. And then I look down, my firing pin is down. My bolt came unlocked. And if it's unlocked, when it opens, it will not close. I had to take the bolt out and relock it, or cock it.
Right.
And then finish shooting. So I feel like I really dealt with it well, and I had other people said, I don't know how you did that, but you figured it out. I would have never figured that out, whatever. Slow down. Solve that problem. You have an issue and you need to fix it before you can start shooting again. So I don't want to say slow time down because you can't, but if you start getting in a hurry, then you're going to burn more time. Mm-hmm. Slow down, identify what the problem is, fix it, and then you can get going.
Yeah.
Your stage is messed up already.
Right.
You're not going to get back to 100%. Now you're running on 90% or you're running on 80%. So that's my advice. If you run into an equipment malfunction issue, slow down and fix it. Even another thing is bad positions. When I first started out, I would not fix what I got myself into, a bad shooting position. I'd keep trying to shoot the bad position, and I kept missing. Instead of stop, fix the position, go back to shooting, and now I can hit targets. You really be amazed at how fast you can do that. Bipod height, practice that. Yep. Put your bipod all the way down, get down, and work on getting it up. Whatever bipod you use, it doesn't matter. No. You need to practice with it. But, my advice, what is the old adage? slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
That's not military.
You got to fix. You have to fix the problem.
Right. Absolutely.
So, and the biggest part of fixing the problem is identifying the problem.
Right.
And if you're just herky jerky trying to do, everything, you're not going to get anything done.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I think one thing that I've done lately, I think, well, for one, and you're probably a lot of new people aren't going to like the sound of this, but the best way to deal with things mentally is exactly their practice strategy. And what I mean by that is I don't shoot a practice match every Friday. But there was a time earlier in the year, remember we were just talking about this, where I had a great beginning to this year and I've had a very rough middle to end of this year. But man, I remember 1 month I shot 4 local matches in 1 month. I mean, there's only 4 weekends and I shot 4 local matches, but that's when I got my first win at a local match. And I just felt like there was a very clear feeling within me that game time slowed down. Like all of a sudden in a match, like the match slowed down when I was up there. We talked about like the Jake Vibberts, watching him run. Nothing ever looks fast. That's because he's so good at it. He's so smooth. He's so purposeful. And I think that's the closest to that feeling. I'll never be a Jake Vibbert, but as far as just having that kind of mentality in a stage, I was shooting so much at the beginning of this year that every stage kind of just slowed down in my head. Right. And honestly, that's a big step in dealing with adversity is I didn't have it, right? Or if a mistake happened, I even felt slow, right? Like I could fix a double feed or something, but everything felt very smooth and intentional. Where this last weekend, all of a sudden I'm just like, right, But I have tried to make it an effort to also shoot slower. I've always been such a fast shooter. And not settling for the mediocre trigger break that is coming or stuff like that. So I think slow down, honestly, if there's just one, and as silly as it sounds, right, we're doing all these crazy things in 2 minutes or 90 seconds, but the trick is to slow down.
Absolutely.
And what's funny is and I learned that from Courtney, like watching Courtney shoot. My wife, for the record, shoots, well heck, even like Sunday, she had a 75% hit rate. No, Saturday, sorry. Because she went back and did the math, because that's what she cared about. She didn't care about getting her shots off. She's just going to keep getting better and getting faster.
Smart.
But I guarantee you, at more matches than not, she has beat me on hit percentage. Because she doesn't care. She goes slow, she gets her hits, and she moves on, and she does everything very methodically. And something that's, I think's rubbed off on me a little bit on just how I mentally try to go about things. So what do you got for the mental adversity?
That's why you dry fire, and that's why you practice, is that you don't encounter the issues. Right. Usually, if you don't encounter the bipod height issue, it's a lot of it is just paying attention. You're out there with your buddies, and you've paid a lot of money. So at least in my mind, I paid a lot of money. I'm going there to do well. Yeah. But a lot of people, it's kind of like vacation. So they paid a lot of money. They've dropped $250 for a match, and then they've got 2 or 3 nights in a hotel. And they just want to go have fun. And so it's easy to get to slack off right as the moment you get in your buddy's truck and you're talking about reloading and why your caliber is better than his or whatever. And you grab your matchbook from the match director and you're like, okay, and you don't even look at it. Okay, maybe you thumb through it. And so there's things you can do to prepare in the beginning, like writing your dope down in the book, just in case something happens to your electronics. You can do things like just watch people shoot. That's huge. Just watching people shoot. If you don't have a bipod or you don't have like a tripod, a pricey tripod, and just take some binoculars and put them up on your knees, and you're going to be able to watch at least the mirage. You're going to be able to, if you're talking to the shooter and they're telling you they're starting with 4/10 off the center of the plate for the first target, and they miss right with a left to right wind, they needed to hold more. And it's just really what it is you got to pay attention. And a lot of people just, they'll come off a stage and they'll put their mag in their mag holder and then they'll forget to reload it, and they come to the next stage and they've got 2 rounds in there, or they've got no rounds. And so really, part of the mental game is never having to use it because you're on top of it.
Yeah.
In my mind. So.
And, I guess I'll say, so this was the first year I shot in national matches. I didn't get to any last year. So I ended up shooting 3, I guess technically 2-day PRS matches, followed by the team challenge. And I mean, I had a horrible day 1 all 3 times. Well, not to lie, because Nebraska, we didn't get a day 1. But I had a horrible first half of that day. But I think it's just such a testament to, honestly, it's very easy to become a decent trigger puller. It's very hard to become a 2-day consistent shooter. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's the trick, right? And that part is all mental, and it comes with creating your unbreakable habits. Don't try something new on a stage at a national match, right? Because a lot of adversity is self-created, right? Heck, this weekend, I love the PRS wall stage. So when you go to like the PRS wall and the PRS skill stage, if you Google that, I love that stage. And I used to shoot it one way, then I got very good at shooting it another way. And this weekend, out of the blue, I shot it a way that I have never shot it before, and I went 6 for 8, which is, I do pretty good on that stage. I don't do good on a lot of stages, I do pretty good on that stage. And I kicked myself afterwards because I struggled for the 6 hits that I got. But don't do it in a match. Don't create your own adversity. Probably is a great piece of advice.
Most adversity is, if you've got a gun that's been built by a really good gunsmith, that's good components, and like you're creating problems for yourself if you're not like reloading properly or not keeping, like in New Mexico. That was a dusty, dirty match, and we had a teammate that
and hot,
and he didn't have his headspace right, and so he was having trouble chambering rounds all on day 2 because it was dirty and we were basically laying around in the dirt all day. And I just about made that mistake last Sunday, and we reminded, like, okay, put your little Trojan cover on your gun and keep the dirt out. Don't just lay your gun out in the middle of the dirt and expect it not to get dirt on it, you know. And so a lot of the stuff is, and it's hard to keep track of everything, but once you get like a process, you have to use a lot less mental energy on those things, and you can start focusing on watching people shoot or shooting, basically.
And that's where failure becomes a big teacher. When you fail at a stage or whatever, take something away from that. And my bipod was too low. I just saw 5 other shooters shoot with their bipod halfway out. Why didn't I do that? Make a note to yourself, say, hey, remember, and learn from those failures.
You say that. I want to pay attention to that word, that sentence, make a note. Saturday, I saw something that I had not noticed. I know it's happened. I had not noticed before. I was the worst student in the world. I didn't take notes for any of my classes. But I watched somebody actually sit down with a matchbook after the match and start writing notes on every stage. And I was like, wow, they're actually going to go home and read that. Like,
I actually, for my first probably 5 matches, national or otherwise, did that. After the match, I would go through each individual stage, and I don't know that I recommend this, because you don't want to dwell on the negatives, but again, you got to learn from your failures. So I needed to understand on this stage what went wrong.
But you write down what went right.
And sometimes it was, I suck right now and need to become a better shooter. I mean, that's, you drop down prone and it's a troop line and they're big, and I just need to become better at reading wind. Nothing failed. It was just the guy pulling the trigger just needed more experience.
But you get it. I write, usually at the national level matches, I will walk off the stage and set your rifle down in a safe position, load up my mag, and then I'll sit down and I'll write down, like, 7 out of 12. Like a good example is at the New Mexico match, for the Hawkins match, the KYL rack. I wrote down, watch your impacts, because I hit the first one and I thought rock and roll, and then I got to I don't know, the 3rd or 4th one, and I kept on missing it, and everybody was like, couldn't you not see that you were hitting left or right or whatever it was? I was like, I wasn't paying a lick of attention. Apparently I was just running it, and you forget to watch.
I think that's just a little Little Jose's Nuggets here. Big turning point for me. You like that? Big turning point for me is I used to not pay attention. If somebody yelled impact, boom, it was an impact.
Yeah.
Now I so very, very conscientiously try to see what direction the plate turned. A lot of times you're going to come up on a dirty plate, you're not going to see where it hit. But if you can tell that it barely moved and it kind of turned left, you probably hit upper left corner just because of the way the weight disperses on the target. If that son of a gun looks like it's about to flip and it's turning left, you probably hit low left, right? So, or you learn that that's not a hard and fast rule, but you learn those things. And I have tried so hard because like a lot of guys do, they come up, they barely squeeze that left edge, they didn't pay attention, they hold the same shot, and all of a sudden, boom, they went off the left edge, and you're like, crap, I just sacrificed a point.
Yeah.
So definitely, definitely.
And back to Depperschmidt's point about paying attention, if you're on glass and you're watching the 3 or 4 shooters in front of you, and you're watching where they're impacting, you're going to see what that plate does when you hit at that point.
Right.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
And then a good thing that I've been trying to do lately is then I'll go back at my Kestrel, and let's say the wind is consistent all day. Well, then you can solve what the wind is, like right off the bat. So on Sunday, the hustle, the wind was pretty consistent. In the morning, it was more than it was in the afternoon, actually. And so, and so our buddy Niels Foley, he was shooting, and he was saying, "Oh, I think that's about a 6 mile an hour wind. That's where I'm going to start." And I immediately knew that that was 3/10. And so I was like, oh, that's 3/10 at a 10 o'clock or 6 mile an hour, 10 o'clock wind. And so that wind stayed pretty consistent when we're on that front burn. And so you can measure it, run it, watch people shoot, see where they're going to start. And
3/10. I was at 5/10, so he's shooting something way faster than me.
He was shooting his dasher. No, it's 3/10 for me.
Oh, okay. Oh, of course for you. All right, we're good. Sorry, no tangent there.
Yeah.
No,
we're shooting the same
good.
caliber.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So, and you can just by just staying focused.
Right.
And
No, that's good. So I guess we'll start kind of wrapping things up, but the last, let's say, topic is the whole point of the series, how to get into PRS shooting. So not that several old heads couldn't take little nuggets away from this here and there, but the intention here is to help, some of you newer shooters, one, be encouraged to go shoot, and then two, more importantly, I think one of probably my biggest passions is I go all in, and I very enthusiastically make mistakes. But there's mistakes that I feel like I and we could help people avoid. So what is the one piece of advice, and we're going to keep it to one, what's your one most emphatic piece of advice that you want to give somebody getting into the PRS game? Like 0 to 2 matches-ish. What's the one thing you think is going to help accelerate a learning curve?
oh wow.
I know.
You can let Deb go first if you want.
I struggled. I was reading that. They gave us some questions early, and I was like, I don't know. I hate to. It's like cliche, but you got to go shoot. You can talk to people on the internet, and some of them might be right, some of them might be wrong. You don't know the quality of person you're talking to, but the bullet never lies. No, there's another cliche, right? You know what I mean? Like if you go out and shoot, you're gonna find the inaccuracies in your reloading, or if you're lucky enough to shoot factory ammo and can afford to do that. But you're gonna find, okay, I need to do this for my reloading process, or you're gonna figure out how you work through a troop line or something. You just got to go out and shoot, which is the best part, is figuring it out. And if you're not shooting, I guarantee you that there's guys out there shooting when you're sitting around. And it depends. You know what I mean? Like if you just want to go have fun, that's a good thing. But if you're like driven to be competitive, you got to get out and practice. I don't know. I don't know if that's great advice.
I'm gonna say mine segues off of that. I think my advice, and the reason I say it segues kind of off the last thing you said. I think mine's gonna be a 2-part advice. Just one thing: know your
You said one.
Know your motivation, know why you're there, and control your attitude. And that's kind of hand in hand. But what I mean by know why you're there, we've mentioned a couple times, there's guys that love the club match, and they love to come hang out, and they know, like if they finish the top half, they're like, yes, it was a great day.
Yeah.
They know their motivation, and they can control their attitude off the motivation. If you're like me and you're one character flaw, only one character flaw is that you're over competitive, then you want to, I realize, as I've mentioned a couple times already, I have to control my attitude. Not that I'm not like a little like pissy worrywart type guy, but I can let things get into my head, right? So realize you're out there to have fun, and the days that you get your butt kicked are just as fun in different ways as the days. You take the good days and you love them, and you take the bad days and you learn from them. But if you control your attitude, I think it'll accelerate. Because I mean, there was a point in time before I met y'all, I'd started shooting in Utah. There was a point in time I sold off all my long range guns except for my Tika and my scopes. I've gotten rid of like any sort of fancy scope. I was almost out of it except for that Tika, because I had let my attitude get that bad. Yeah. And then I was like, kind of met a friend like Brett and y'all, and I was like, no, this is something I want to be a part of, right? And maybe had I had a better attitude to begin with, I'd be further along right now.
Super.
But I mean, really, like if you want to cut some of the hurdles out there, like we said, you create your own adversity and you control your own attitude.
Yeah.
Well, as captain of Team Black Flag, I can't do what I'm told. There's not just one. Like Deborah Schmidt said, you're not going to learn anything if you're not shooting.
Yeah.
You can get on the blogs and even watch this video, and I hope we taught you something, but if you're not behind the gun and shooting, and preferably in competition mode because it's different.
Oh, yeah.
When you're under the clock, everything changes. As I'm sitting here thinking about what I feel like helped me get the success that I've had so far, it's going to be odd. It's talk to people.
Yeah.
Find out. Like we're sharing our stories, and you can watch the video, but go to a match. Yep. Go shoot a match and talk to people. Don't expect them to come up to you and say, hey, I know you're a new shooter. Here, I've been doing this for 15 years. Let me tell you everything I know. Right. They're just not going to do that. And there's a good time and a bad time. When I'm in the middle of a competition is not a good time. I'll give you tidbits or help you if I know you're struggling. It's, after day one or after day two, say, hey, I noticed on this stage, whatever, how did you do that? Or show me that piece of gear. And yes, you can touch my gun. You can shoot my gun. You're more than welcome to anything, but you need to come ask me.
Right.
There's so many people there. I want to offer it to everybody, right, but I can't. So get out and shoot. Learn from the people that are shooting. Yeah. At whatever level they are, everybody's got something that they can talk to you about. And lastly, don't get caught up in the game of caliber chasing, gear chasing.
This is what you need to take away the most.
best. Again, the best is what works for you. Yeah. Right now, the best is what you have. Whatever you have, take it out there and shoot it. Mm-hmm. Figure it out. It's not that hard. People will help you. And then you'll learn, okay, this is not working for me. I need to learn mills, not MOA. I need to, put the 308 back in the gun safe. But you also have to set realistic expectations for where you want to be, what you want to do, where you want to be in the game. I knew going in where I wanted to be, and I started asking questions about how to get there. Right. Now, a lot of those people are probably wishing they hadn't told me, but they're friends of mine now. Right. So, and I'll share it with anybody that asks me. I'm not immensely successful, but I'm getting there. I'm going to get there. Right. But if you want to shoot club matches, shoot club matches. There's nobody telling you you have to shoot national level matches and buy the most expensive gun and be a top 10 shooter in a year and a half or whatever. Find out where you want to be, learn what it takes to get there, and enjoy it. But you have to go shoot. You have to go.
I think actually that helps me like focus
More.
going out and shoot, you know, because it's not so much about, it is about shooting and learning, but it's also, you learn a lot from the people you're shooting with, and that's why Rich and I started our team, and because we wanted to help each other. And then we met, and I'll pump up my Colorado guys all day long. I think they're some of the best group of guys. I mean, seriously, I talk to so many guys every day, and we talk about practicing or working through things. And I've been fortunate enough to meet some good shooters that have either lived in Colorado or they're out east, and talk to them as well. And you learn a lot just by going and talking to people and seeing what works for them. Like my crazy practice routine that I'm always tweaking is, you know, I've talked to guys like Ben Gossett and Derek Duncan, and just learn from them. And so you learn a lot from the community, and then you find out the community is awesome. You know, I probably talk to guys on our team every day about something. I just recently broke the golden rule and decided to switch calibers in August, but I did it with a lot of help. You know, in our region, we also have very competitive shooters in Utah and Idaho and Wyoming, and they're all great shooters. And I was bugging Steve Eames in Utah about moving to Dasher, and that's just going to help me get up and running faster.
Right.
And so you learn a lot from just talking to people and getting involved. And so you got to go shoot to talk to these people. And if you want to do well, you got to talk to guys that are doing well. And there's some guys that are just and ladies that are just shooting awesome.
I don't think anybody's ever not answered a question that I've asked them.
Yeah,
Right.
or Facebook Messenger, which is like the
But,
PRS.
you know,
like,
you got to be respectful in the way that you approach it too.
Yeah, you gotta completely approach it humble, right? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
I've spoken with a couple of people.
Well, the game will humble you.
Well, no, I mean, I've spoken to a couple people, and I've had this frustration even. Guys ask me something, and I feel like I try to be pretty intellectual about things I do. It's kind of like sports. I was never athletic, so I tried to be the smarter player on the field. And I feel like the same thing in this game. The guys will come to me and they'll ask me such and such, and it'll be an hour-long conversation. And they turn around and do something completely opposite. And I'm not saying that, like, you should listen to everything I say, right? Like, I'm not saying do what I say. But you can't sit there and bug me for my time and then consistently ignore me. That's the easiest way to get me to stop talking to you, right?
No.
So, like, there's a certain attitude, right? Like, if you're going to go to somebody and you decide they're your source of knowledge, then you do need to listen to them a little bit, or you're going to feel like you're wasting their time.
no,
So-
it's smart to listen to the people that are experienced.
Right.
Well, all right, I think that just about wraps us up. I hope you really enjoyed this time we sat down with Team Black Flag. I think they really gave us a lot of nuggets of wisdom, if you will. If you have any questions or anything, make sure you go on to our continuing thread on how to get into PRS on our forums, as well as keep up with our social media, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, for the latest updates we have on this series and ongoing reviews and how-tos we got going. And with that, I'm Jose Gardner. Thanks for your time.